Tom Higham, and I am the Associate Principal Viola for Orchestra Victoria. Pulcinella is a character that came from a series of manuscripts that were written in the 1700s. And Pulcinella, despite having a girlfriend of his own, Pimpinella, is sought after by a lot of the other ladies in the local village, and he can't help but following their pursuits. And this leads him down a path of trouble, not only with his girlfriend Pimpinella, but also the male suitors of these female characters. And the ballet story is a bit of a convoluted one. I mean, bearing in mind that it only goes for about 45 minutes, so a lot of the action happens pretty quickly. It all sort of comes to a head with Pulcinella getting in a bit of a scrap with these other male suitors. But before they can kill him off, he manages to escape. He comes up with a brilliant plan with his friend to switch identities, and then a magician turns up and resurrects Pulcinella from the dead. And for some reason, Pimpinella is smitten again, and the other female characters succumb to their suitors' advances, and everyone kisses and everyone lives happily ever after. The end. It's a ballet, it's very much a comedy. There's a lot of mischief going on stage, a lot of misadventures, tales of revenge and these sort of things. But no, everyone dances off into the afternoon sunlight. In this one. Just generally speaking, with music by Stravinsky, if I'm to think of one word to describe it, it's character. And you're never bored listening to his music because your ear is always drawn to an instrument on stage, doing something, or down in the pit, or whatever the setting is. And this piece is no different. It's incredibly fun. It's irresistibly playful. And I think the enjoyment that you really get out of playing a piece like this is that you're able to impart your own personality and your own character on the music, because a lot of what's going on stage is sort of centered around mischief and playfulness, and he really invites the audience along on this little journey. So, each instrument has its own attributes, its own characteristics, and then of course there's the musician behind that instrument. And again, as musicians, we're really, within this piece, really invited to bring out a lot of that character ourselves. So everyone, I think, gets to play a part, whether they're a solo line or a more accompanying line. It's still there's a lot more individuality to it. There's an interesting story with the Pulcinella ballet in general. It's quite different from, say, Firebird or The Rite of Spring or Petrushka that were written before it, in the sense that those were sort of written in folklore or in times, and places that were not real. When Sergei Diaghilev, who was the impresario of the Ballet Russe at the time, came up with this idea. He discovered a bunch of manuscripts from Naples in the 1700s, centered around this character of Pulcinella, and sort of amalgamated them, to form the libretto for this particular ballet. And one of the ways that he wanted to kind of ground that work in the time, and in a historical place in 18th century Naples, was he brought a whole bunch of scores that were apparently written by Pergolesi to Stravinsky and said, "I'd like you to adapt these and arrange them in your own musical style." Initially he was reluctant, I think, to do that, but then delving into those scores and really studying them, he became quite enamored with them and had an epiphany of sorts that kind of drew his musical language away from the Russian style that he'd been, steeped in for the previous part of his career, and back towards the Western classical and Baroque style. And so it kind of heralded a bit of a turning point in Stravinsky's musical language towards this neoclassical kind of style of his for the next 30 years or so, until he went into serialism, in the later part of his career. So yeah, it's a very interesting work in that sense, because it does represent a bit of a turning point in terms of his musical language. We've done a couple of concerts at Hanson Dyer Hall in the last 12 months or so already. And I think it's a really great series. It's a very important series, as much as anything, for the identity of this orchestra. Because I think a lot of the time, you know, we are heard but not seen, just purely by virtue of the fact that we're down, you know, in a pit playing opera and ballet. And that obviously is a great thing, and it's, you know, it's a lot of our core work. But I think to be put up on stage in front of people, it gives the orchestra the opportunity to, and the audience and our local music community, the opportunity to put faces to the name Orchestra Victoria, and, you know, showcase the fact that, yes, while we do play in the pit a lot of the time, we are not just a pit orchestra. I think we're a lot more versatile than just being a pit orchestra. And so a series like this really allows us to get out there, obviously play some different repertoire, and to showcase what we can do outside of the theatre.